installed pegboard a few years ago after insulating and drywalling my workshop. Pegboard has its place, but due to bent pegs and weight limitations, I don't want that place to be in my workshop. Instead, I opted for a real wood look, using 2x4s split in half with individual places designated for each tool, instead of the find a peg placement of my current tools. After cutting all my 2x4s in half, I situated the boards by rotating between crowning and cupping, that is, alternately rotating the growth rings up and down. In theory, this will keep my wall straighter than if I randomly glued the boards together. I'm now making my marks where I want to put my biscuit joints. The brilliance of biscuit jointing is the repeatable perfection you can easily achieve just by lining your boards up and making a quick line across them. When you go to cut each joint, you'll center each line to your biscuit jointer, making it virtually impossible to make a mistake. Alright, let's remove all the tools now. And the pegs. And the pegboard. With pegboard, you need a gap behind the board in order to be able to remove and insert each peg. While using these wood strips isn't absolutely necessary for my new wall, they're placed over the studs, which will make them useful when I go to attach a board. They will also be later used in the next video. It's probably a good idea to label each of these boards in order, which is what I'm doing here. My original idea was to glue each piece to the next one up, excluding the first one for obvious reasons. I used bottleneck hydraulic jacks to put each board in place, nailing them to the strips behind them. But due to the nature of the low quality construction grade pine that I'm using, doing so meant gluing and waiting for each board to dry before doing the next, as the nails weren't able to keep them in place. Instead, I created two large panels on the workbench, gluing them overnight for each panel. Finally, I attached them to the wall. While it took more time this way than my original idea, at least I didn't have to glue each board individually. After gluing each individual board, as well as the biscuits and joints, I clamped them together and used a wet cloth to clean the squeeze out. I can't recommend a better tip when gluing than cleaning the glue up before it dries, as it is a daunting task to remove it later on. I used the same width boards as my original strips to flush out the outlets. The outside area of my wood rectangle is the exact inside area of the electrical boxes, which will allow me to put plastic outlet inserts in to keep things up to code. Now, if you've seen my bite-sized video on paint transference, I'll leave a link down below. I'm using the same technique to find my outlets and mark them. I haven't perfected the idea yet, but this worked enough for what I wanted to do. Like I said, it's not perfect, but with these abstract markings, I can place the pattern over top and trace out a usable pattern. And then it was just a matter of lining up the holes and pushing the section up by wedging scraps under the base. A few nails and it was done. I'm using a water-based polyurethane as it allows the wood to keep its natural color over the oil-based sister, which can often turn the wood an amber color. And while it looks like the wall is more amber here, it took some strong words, a few temper tantrums, and a quick read of the instructions to figure out how to turn the auto lighting off my video camera. I have not shown how I did the electrical part of this, mainly because there seems to be a lot of different codes to install an outlet. And because this is an international platform, yeah, I don't want to get in trouble with anyone. Stay tuned as we put another brick in the wall in part 2, which will have some interesting additions. Thank you for watching.